Hi everyone, welcome to the Fire Artisan channel. I'm Drew, and today we are playing Historic Simic Elementals. So I am someone who loves, as fans of the channel undoubtedly know, I'm someone who loves Simic colors and especially Simic ramp based strategies. So the decks that I tend to play competitively, it's just always these kinds of ramp decks, especially Simic ramp. Um, Probably the most popular deck in Historic right now is either some kind of Sultai ramp or a four-color ramp that is essentially a Sultai ramp shell that's adding white. Um, Simic ramp is an interesting alternative, and I want to just try to promote it a little bit in this video, as well as explain my specific build and and why I think. I mean, I've been relatively successful with it. I mean, yesterday I played for a few hours, and I think I went from like maybe platinum 3 to platinum 1, and I'm hoping to crack into diamond today, and then eventually get into mythic with this deck. So here's kind of, this is going to be a long introduction, so you should just skip it if you just want to see the video, because I have a lot to say about this deck. But yeah, if that's going to bore you, then you should just move forward. So here's the deal. Let's start with why you want to play Simic potentially over Sultai. First of all, we have to start acknowledging that we lose a lot by not playing black. We basically lose the power to clear the board. Ugin the Spirit Dragon is sort of a way to clear the board, but it's really not the same thing as being able to just play an extinction event with a reasonable amount of mana, 4 mana, or just being able to kill things with Fatal Push, for example, or any sort of black-based removal card that you would have access to. In Sultai, we don't have access to Thoughtseize, another really important card to that Sultai ramp deck, just being able to sort of proactively pick apart the opponent's strategy. If you're playing goblins, take the Muxus out of their hands so they can't accelerate one out too early, things like that. But we gain a few things by playing Simic instead of Sultai. I mean, one thing we gain, for example, is the ability to play cards that are sort of more fully committed to Simic, or namely either green or blue. For example, Cavalier of Thorns is a pretty difficult card to play if you're playing in Sultai colors. You often won't have enough green to play it on turn 3, which is kind of the best time to play it, ideally. And then you can play a more comfortable Nissa on turn 4 when it's basically behind this wall. Big 5/6 reach. You're okay with it dying because it does something for you, etc. This is an excellent card, not just against creature decks, which it is, by the way, completely devastating against, but it's very good against even control decks because it ramps you. You grab a land, basically the best land in the top 5 cards. It could be a Triome, it could be an untapped land. You basically always get an untapped land if you need one. So this can be an excellent play. Let's say we have 6 lands down. We play one of these guys in a tight, match against, let's say we're playing Azorius Control, okay? You've got 6 lands down. You play the Cavalier. You grab an untapped island. Boom, you have put an enormous threat on the board, ramped yourself, and you still have negate up. So that's the sort of thing we're looking to do with the Cavalier of Thorns. Speaking more generally about the Elementals package, Risen Reef is still an underrated card. I think it was obviously kind of properly evaluated when it was in Standard. People saw that there's nothing that ramps you like Risen Reef. It's just an insane card. I mean, you have 2 of these things down. You play your Leafkin Druids, you play your Cavalier, and it just goes crazy. I mean, you get a million lands down. You get so many cards in your hand. It's importantly, let's talk about something like Cultivate, right? Essential card, crazy not to be playing it if you're playing a green ramping strategy, right? Yes, it is a little bit crazy, but the logic behind it is simply that it pales in comparison to Risen Reef. It just pales. Um, you get as much value from Risen Reef. I mean, almost when you just pop it down for the first time. Yes, you might need a land and not hit it. That's kind of the worst scenario. But you have something on the board. Risen Reef can block. It can do things for you. It can pressure planewalkers. I mean, it is a 1/1, but something on the board versus just getting lands when you're in kind of a really tight spot can really make a difference. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, people have to answer it. You get a couple of these things down, or even one that gets a couple of triggers, and let's say in the match against Sultai, you can really pull ahead. This deck can really accelerate in terms of ramping, like almost no deck that I've ever seen. I mean, so in terms of why you play this deck over Sultai ramp, it's if you actually want to ramp. Sultai ramp, or Sultai control really, or Sultai midrange. There are a number of things that people are calling it these days. And it's become a little bit more mid-rangey in certain ways, but this is a dedicated ramp deck. We're just ramping. We're going crazy. So if you're the type of person that cares more about ramp than you care about, digging through your opponent's hand, or being that sort of control mastermind, and you just want to have a million lands down and then do a huge mass manipulation, or get the first Ugin down, or really respect the power of Nissa in terms of your forest count, and in terms of getting to her quickly. Like frankly, there's not, with Sultai ramp, with 4-color ramp having just being the standard in historic, there's not really a serious way to get a turn 3 Nissa down. You just rarely see it. I mean, you rarely see it. And it's because Sultai ramp has just been, it's not very high on the actual ramp cards. It sacrifices a lot for its controlling elements, which is worth it. I mean, it's an excellent deck, don't get me wrong, but if you really want to commit yourself to ramping, I think this is the deck. So let's talk about it a little bit. I think most of these choices are going to be pretty straightforward. I can tell you that one thing I was not doing until recently was actually playing with the Llanowar Elves. For a while, I was kind of using Growth Spiral and obviously Leafkin Druid as kind of the primary way to start ramping, right? You play a tap land on turn 1 and then get there. But increasingly, I was thinking a couple of things. One thing I was thinking is it was getting awkward with Risen Reef. I was getting my Growth Spiral on turn 2 and getting to 4 lands, but there's nothing for 4 mana in this deck. So you want to get to 3. You want to accelerate to 3 to get an Uro or a Risen Reef down. So that's kind of what we're doing. We are looking to play a turn 1, and we're looking ideally to play a Risen Reef on turn 2. Bam, it's down. Big problem. You play the Risen Reef, 2 lands down, get a 3rd down, and if you still have the Elf down, you can get the turn 3 Nissa. You can also just get the turn 3 Nissa if you get these 2 mana creatures down, and then you play a 3rd land. So one thing this deck can often do that other ramping decks just aren't doing these days is actually get a turn 3 Nissa. And as we all know, a turn 3 Nissa can just win the game. Even in Historic, it usually just wins the game, especially when you're on the play. Okay, so what else do we want to talk about? I want to talk about Censor. I just added this card really recently. I wanted a little bit more interaction, because one thing this deck does not do that, again, comparing it to something like Sultai ramp, is it doesn't have many interactive elements. Okay, you're sacrificing that for the power of the ramp, which is fun, and it's competitive, but like I said, it's you're making sacrifices. So I think Censor gives us a little bit more play. There may even be a case for putting more of these in and maybe going down to 2 Cavalier of Thorns, 1 Ugin. So we've got a little bit of flexibility. I mean, we could potentially even go down to 27 lands. I'm at 28 right now. So this is kind of where I'm messing with the deck a little bit here. I'm not main decking the gusts, which is something a lot of these 3-4 color ramping decks are doing. So that could be a possibility. I mean, I have been playing with 4 gusts in the sideboard, but I mean, frankly, there are a lot of competitive historic decks that don't play with anything that's red or green. And I know you might say, well, it's still not a dead card because you can target your own stuff, and that's true, but no one plays Aether Gust to target their own stuff. The card is good because you're targeting your opponent's stuff, right? So that's not really a good excuse to play it main deck. That said, obviously, if you're looking at a specific event and you know 80% of people are going to bring Sultai Ramp, obviously main decking Aether Gust is a great choice. It's great against goblins too, and those are probably the 2 most popular decks. So main decking Aether Gust, it's something we could talk about. It's not necessarily a bad idea. Okay, so I've talked about most of the key cards. Everyone knows how good Ugin is. Ugin is, in my opinion, Ugin is at its best against creature strategies, right? I tend to just board out the Ugins if I'm playing, for example, if I'm playing Sultai Ramp, for a couple of reasons. One reason is that it doesn't effectively answer Nissa lands. If you're way behind and they have, 2 Nissa lands down, 3 Nissa lands down, and you do the normal thing, you play the Ugin, you exile everything you can. If they've got 2 or 3 Nissa lands down, you're still totally dead. So, and the Ugin is dead, right? So usually the power of Ugin is that you can sort of clear all the threats without making the Ugin super vulnerable. So yeah, I would board out the Ugin, and I always board out the Ugin against any kind of ramp strategy. Oftentimes even against a control deck. 1, because he's so easy to counter, and 2, because often the only thing you can do is just 3 damage to their face, which is basically nothing, right, in a control matchup. I mean, of course, he's a must-answer threat because they can't really let him get to the ultimate, but he's just not as powerful as a card like Mass Manipulation, for example. So we're main decking 1 copy of Mass Manipulation, and we can get 1 copy from the sideboard. And this is the last card that I'll really talk about before we get going here. Mass Manipulation is so powerful. Again, it doesn't tend to be that great against creature decks. You want the Ugin, so I'll just take this out. Like against goblins, for example, you think, oh, they have 1 million goblins down, I'll just steal them all. It's like, no, because number 1, like, you never have enough mana as early as you need to play this card effectively against a deck like goblins, or really against most types of creature decks, especially low curve creature decks. And number 2, Ugin is just way better. But Mass Manipulation, this is what I was going to say. It's excellent against control strategies, against other ramp strategies, generally against any strategy that's kind of a big mana strategy, right? They're putting big stuff down. They have, 3 big things on the board, or ideally, if they're winning, they have 3 big things on the board. This card can get you back in the game if you're losing in that type of matchup. It's a real mirror breaker, right? It's shockingly powerful, just shockingly powerful. And the other thing is that I lost my train of thought. It tends to be very unexpected, is what I wanted to say. Very unexpected. Most people, I mean, I've never seen anyone in Historic besides me that's playing with it, never played against it, and people never expect it. Yeah, so we have another one to bring in. 2 is usually enough. Don't want too many of these in your hand, because again, it's so rare that you have the opportunity to sort of cast this and make it very effective. Of course, I think the last thing I'll say about it is that it's also obviously extremely valuable if you're ahead, because it can shut the door on a game that is otherwise a little bit competitive. Your opponent plays that either one big threat or sort of a sequence of big threats to sort of come back and establish themselves on the board. If you can untap and take all that stuff, it's completely over just when they see the card. Okay. And we're the only deck that can really play it. Mass Manipulation. I mean, the only other deck that I could see that could conceivably play it effectively is like the kind of deck I want to build personally, like a mono blue ramping deck that I think would just have to ramp with artifacts and things like that. Okay, so anyway, this is the deck that I've been playing. So let's dive in. I'll show you what this looks like in action. For those of you who just watched through my entire rant there, respect. That I know that was a lot, but I could talk all day about this. I have a lot to say about it. I stay up at night, right? I lose sleep just agonizing over some of these card choices. 3 Cavaliers, 4 Cavaliers, 1 sensor, 2 sensor. For a while I was playing 4 sensors, and I switched that up. Sideboard choices, all kinds of stuff like that. So I've been having a lot of fun. Xander, I think I played this person yesterday. Alrighty. Let's do this. So this looks fine. All right. That's bad news for our sensor. This is an interesting sideboard card for us. It's something I have considered, but I mean, frankly, I just haven't been playing that many decks where this would be an effective card to put in. Like, it's sort of two things, right? Like, obviously it's super effective against a deck that's playing with a lot of counter magic. If you really want to land your Nissa, it can guarantee that, but it's just so easy to answer. I mean, it's a 1 mana creature. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting... Yeah, let me talk about this for a sec. So, obviously a lot of people would say, well, pass the turn, play Growth Spiral, but we can hit Llanowar Elves in this deck. So, and we have a force to put down. So if we draw an elf, then there's a case for just main decking, just main phasing the Growth Spiral. Another option is to just hold up Censor. I think, oh crap. Okay, that would have been a good one to censor, but of course, in talking about that, I remembered that this is down. So of course, I think a better play would have been to just main phase the Growth Spiral. Okay, we missed a land drop. Let's get the Risen Reef down. Oh no. Okay, well this is getting pretty desperate here. Missed a couple of land drops. Couple of options here. Oh boy. So there's a lethal attack, so we're gonna block. Doesn't have trample or anything. Yeah. Okay. So this is good game here. We're playing a mono green elves deck, so we'll just have to keep that in mind going into sideboards here. They only hit 3 lands the whole game, so all right, so I think Gust is great. I'm going to switch the view here. I'm more accustomed to this view. Mass Manipulation. This is a good example of when that card has to be out. Because you saw it. We had 3 lands down, and they had an army of creatures. It's just too slow. But Ugin is good. Just zero their whole board. think that's kind of it. So Krasis is super bad in a matchup like this. Really anything that's blocking the ground effectively is pretty good here. So the Cavaliers are good. We're on the play, so I don't really like to interfere too much with my normal ramp package. I think I'm going to get rid of this sensor because I'm assuming they're just main decking. I mean, they are main decking that 1 mana card. So sensor's probably just dead in this matchup except as a cycle. Okay, I was thinking for a sec that all right, that's good. That's good. That Xander was my friend Nick Hildreth, but I think his name is Xanther. So that's unfortunately not the case. So here's a good example of a time when we can do this. This is kind of like a uniquely Simic ramp combo there. So we don't have another land in hand, but if we draw one, then we've got our turn 3 Nissa. So we're crossing our fingers here. Elves seems to be really well positioned now with the new set. I don't like to do this, but I think we just want to draw a card and put a 2/2 on the battlefield right now. Oh my god. Wow. We have been choked for lands this whole game. I don't usually have this problem. All right, well hopefully we can tough it out. All right, that's pretty powerful. Shepherd, not that worried about the Shepherd, except for the activated ability. All right, they're going to pass. Want lands. All right, you got to feel like if they've got a good card in hand, then we're just done for here. Maybe we can hold our ground. We'll see. All they really need is one of those rallying effects. All right, that's not it. And that's not it. One. Okay. So 1, 2, yeah. Block there. I'm counting 11. I think we'll block another 2. All right. Got to draw land to Ugin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? All right. Well, this is why Ugin's so good, right? This should just do it for this game. I just want to make sure. I don't know all the new elf cards that well yet, so I just want to make sure that I don't, hit 2 when there's a 3. Okay, wow. Another really tight game. Well, not tight for... the first game was not tight. And that one honestly didn't feel that tight until we lucked out and won. I don't really think I want to change that much for the sideboards. This is a weird matchup. I've never played this deck in like the Simic matchup. I've played against it in Historic more broadly, but I don't think I've ever played it playing Simic. So this doesn't seem like a good matchup for us. Okay, okay. This is exactly what we need. Just really fast start, really fast start. Hopefully we'll be able to get that turn 2, barring some kind of interaction from them, which I'm not really expecting. The nice thing against playing elves is that they let you do what you want to do. They don't care about, they're not going to counter your shit. All right, give me a land. No land. Next turn looks fine though. We can gust plus spiral. Gonna have to take a chunk there. Think, yeah, let's do it this way. Have I played a land this turn? Yes. All right, I think I'll gust that. Alrighty. Just got to do what we can to slow them down. Just got to slow them down. All right. Wanted a land there. Definitely wanted a land there. Okay, I think we did want to attack there. I guess I just got cold feet. I mean, their 1/1s are pretty disposable, so they might have just made that block on the land. We do really need our land, so I guess that's why I was a little conservative about that block. I feel nervous. I feel nervous. Yeah, I feel nervous about this. Collected company. Gust that. Wow. Really, really, really tight on lands this game. Really tight on the lands. Let's do a 6 Crisis. Let's get a land. Let's attack. And let's try to survive their collected company and hopefully win this game. All right. We should have this one wrapped up. I think I'm just going to do this attack first, have them play collected company and destroy my board a little bit, and then play the Ugin post combat. I just want them to play this collected company. I don't want them to play it after I play the Ugin. So we're going to make a pretty aggressive attack here. And then just play Ugin post-combat. I think Xander's not going to be happy about... I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think they're going to be happy to see this Ugin. I certainly wouldn't be. If I were them, I would not be happy. So 3 is the magic number. It did a number on our board, but we've got a Nissa on 8 and another Nissa coming, so I think it's I think it was worth the price. Oh, it's okay. That's gonna get us a hair away from diamond. That's disappointing. We were so close. We were so close. Alrighty. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to subscribe if you haven't, and feel free to comment and leave, ideas for decks like this, or the kind of deck that you might want to see in the future. I had a couple of requests months ago that I haven't gotten around to yet, so I am gonna get to those soon. Yeah, again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.